Most of us don't know all the details of our entire family tree. But you may have some suspicions about your ancestors, even if you don't know much about your genealogy. For instance, certain last names can reveal a lot about you, including whether you have any royal blood in your veins. In fact, the right surname in the depths of your family tree could link you to a noble and aristocratic family. Read on to discover the last names that could reveal some links to royalty in your family tree. What's in a last name? Are you related to royals? Ben Pruchny, Getty Images. As Quartz reports, surnames were first adopted by the upper classes in England in the 11th century. A family's status in society can persist for centuries. And many of those original last names, including Baskerville, Darcy, Montgomery, Neville, Percy, and Talbot, have persisted at the very top of society for generations. Such last names indicate that you came from a wealthy family. But some surnames also reveal royal blood. The Tab reports that you may be able to find a link just by looking for last names associated with royalty in your family tree. The British aristocracy has a famously complex system for names, but the family trees of prominent families are well recorded. Tracing back someone with an aristocratic-sounding name, you might find a link to a titled family. The Tab explains. Next, check out the last names that could link you to British aristocracy. 1. Astley. Edward Astley aka Baron Hastings. Central Press, Hulton Archive, Getty Images. Noble link. Baron Hastings, Astley, begins our list of last names that could reveal some royal or aristocratic blood in your lineage. The Tab reports that this name is associated with Baron Hastings. The title dates to the year 1295 in England, and relates to a place. According to the surname database, last names related to a location were usually, as is the case with Astley, first held by the local lord of the manor. We know from the surviving charters and rolls of the medieval period that Andrew d'Astley, the first Lord Astley, was recorded in the 100 rolls of the county of Warwickshire in the year 1295, the publication notes. Next, a famous writer had this last name and title. To Byron. Lord George Byron brought fame to the name. Hulton Archive, Getty Images. Next on the list. Byron, a surname associated with Baron Byron. The title that was created in England in 1643. And it continues today. The surname database reports that many people have heard of this name because of the poet Lord George Byron. At the Poetry Foundation explains, Byron captivated the Western mind and heart as few writers have, stamping upon 19th-century letters, arts, politics, even clothing styles. His image and name is the embodiment of Romanticism. Next, one man who held the title associated with this last name met a pretty violent death. 3. Capel. Robert Devereux may be the most infamous Earl of Essex. Hulton Archive, Getty Images. Noble link. Earl of Essex. Another of the last names that could reveal aristocratic blood. Capel, a surname that the Tab notes is associated with the Earl of Essex. That title actually dates to 12th century England. The surname database explains that a locational surname, like Capel, was usually acquired by a local landowner or by the lord of the manor. One of the most famous Earls of Essex over the years, Robert Devereux. This earl tried and failed to stage a coup against Queen Elizabeth I. So he was beheaded at the Tower of London in 1601. Next, this last name could link you to English aristocracy. 4. Clifford Thomas Clifford, 1st Baron Clifford of Chudleigh, Government Art Collection, Wikimedia Commons Noble link, Baron Clifford of Chudleigh, another of the last names that could link you to an aristocratic family. Clifford. The tab notes that this last name is associated with Baron Clifford of Chudleigh. That title originally dates to 1672. Interestingly enough, the title was created as Clifford of Chudleigh, rather than simply Clifford, to differentiate it from multiple Clifford baronies created for other members of this noble family. As the surname database notes, the title was originally given to Thomas Clifford. This Clifford actually became an early settler in Virginia. In fact, he left from London aboard a ship called the Primrose in July 1635. Next, an American TV star married the heir to this title. 5. Courtenay William Courtenay, Earl of Devon, Georgios Art, iStock, Getty Images Noble link, Earl of Devon. Next on the list is Courtenay, a surname linked to the Earl of Devon. This title dates to the 12th century and has been possessed by both the de Redvers and later by the Courtenays. The surname database reports that two members of the Courtenay family, John Courtenay and his wife, Sybil, became early emigrants to America. The pair left London for America on a ship called the Paul in July 1635, bound for Virginia. You may have also heard of the Earl of Devon or the last name, Courtenay, for another reason. My so-called life alum Alison Joy Langer married Charlotte Courtenay, reportedly without knowing that he was the son and heir of the Earl of Devon, according to Vanity Fair. Next, this royal-sounding name could link you to British aristocracy. 6. Coventry Gilbert Coventry, 4th Earl of Coventry, National Trust, Wikimedia Commons Noble link, Earl of Coventry. Coventry certainly sounds like a royal last name. And the tab puts it on the list of last names that may reveal a link to the English aristocracy, thanks to its association with the Earl of Coventry. This title originally dated to 1623. The surname database characterizes the name, Coventry, as an English locational surname from the city of Coventry in the county of Warwickshire. The place name was first recorded in the year 1043 as Cuda entry, and later as Coventrev, in the famous Domesday Book of 1086. As the BBC explains, the Domesday Book served as a record of the landholdings and settlements in England, and remains a legal document that is still valid as evidence of title to land. Next, this last name originally came from a nickname. 7. Dormer Charles Dormer, 3rd Baron Dormer, Wikimedia Commons. Another of the last names that could indicate that you have royal blood. Dormer. The tab notes that this name is associated with Baron Dormer. This title dates all the way back to 1615. But Dormer reveals an interesting tidbit on English history all on its own. As the surname database explains, at least 15% of British last names come from nicknames. That's also the case with Dormer. The name probably served as a nickname for a heavy sleeper, or perhaps, given the ribald humor of the medieval period, the reverse. As the publication adds, we have not been able to identify any Chaucerian comments about Dormers, but no doubt there would have been some. Next, this name has an interesting meaning, too. 8. Franklin Edward LaZouche, 11th Baron Zouche, Wikimedia Commons. Next on the list, Franklin, one of the last names that the tab reports may indicate royal blood. Publication notes that this surname is associated with Baron Zouche. That title originally dates to 1308. The family descended from Ellen LaZouche, a Breton who settled in England during the reign of Henry II. The surname database reports that the unusual last name of Franklin forms a status name for someone who lived on a piece of land that he was under no obligation to pay rent for, or to work for in lieu of rent. Next, many people associate this name with the ruling house of Scotland, or with Robin Hood. 9. Hastings. Henry Hastings, 3rd Earl of Huntingdon, National Portrait Gallery, Wikimedia Commons. Noble link, Earl of Huntingdon. Next on the list. Hastings, a name that could indicate that you have royal blood thanks to its association with the Earl of Huntingdon. This title dates to 1065 and was associated with the ruling house of Scotland. It's also linked with Robin Hood in English folklore. The surname database reports that the last name Hastings actually derives from pre-5th century Norse Viking. It likely referred to a Viking tribe, sarcastically named by the Anglo-Saxons, who were less than delighted at their arrival. Viking raiders also invaded Scotland. And that could explain why the name shows up there, as well. Next, this name is associated with several different titles. 10. Herbert. Thomas Herbert, 8th Earl of Pembroke, National Portrait Gallery, Wikimedia Commons. Noble link, Baron Herbert and Earl of Pembroke. If you find the last name, Herbert, on your family tree, you may have a couple of reasons to suspect aristocratic heritage. The tab reports that this name is associated with both the Baron Herbert and the Earl of Pembroke. The title of Baron Herbert dates to 1461. And the title of Earl of Pembroke dates to the 12th century. The surname database explains that the last name Herbert or Harbert derives from the male given name Herbeort for the pre-7th century. This is composed of the elements Harry or Hari, meaning an army, and Bert, bright or famous. Next, this name goes hand in hand with one of the highest titles. 11. Howard. Thomas Howard, 1st Earl of Suffolk, National Portrait Gallery, Wikimedia Commons. Noble link, Earl of Suffolk. Next on the list of last names that could reveal some royal ancestry. Howard. The tab notes that this surname could point to some aristocracy in your lineage thanks to its association with the Earl of Suffolk. The king created this title at the same time as he created the title of the Earl of Norfolk. And the surname database reports that when the final definitive history of famous English surnames is written, the surname of Howard will surely be near the head of the list. The publication explains, the highest heraldic rank in England is that of Earl Marshal, responsible for all events in which the monarch takes a ceremonial role. This title is held by the Duke of Norfolk, whose family descend from Sir William Howard, who died in 1308. Over the years, 37 different coats of arms have been granted to families with this illustrious name. Next, this unusual name is linked to an even more unusual title. 12. Kenworthy. Joseph Kenworthy, 10th Baron of Strabolgie, Bassana Limited, Wikimedia Commons. Noble link, Baron Strabolgie. The tab puts Kenworthy next on the list of last names that could reveal aristocratic ties, thanks to the name's association with the Baron Strabolgie. This lesser-known title has an interesting history. As The Guardian explains, the barony was revived in 1916. At the time, it had remained in abeyance for more than 300 years. Abeyance refers to the state of a title that isn't being used. In abeyance, it awaits the appearance of the true owner. The surname database reports that Kenworthy dates to the late 13th century. Interestingly enough, a Thomas Kenworthy, with his wife Anne and daughter Mary, sailed aboard the Rochas from Liverpool to New York in 1846. Next, this last name could link you to English royalty. 13. Lumley. Richard Lumley, 2nd Earl of Scarborough, National Portrait Gallery, Wikimedia Commons. Noble link, Earl of Scarborough. Another of the last names that could mean you have some royal blood. Lumley, thanks to its ties to the Earl of Scarborough. This title was originally created in 1690 for Richard Lumley. Lumley numbers among the ranks of the Immortal Seven, the English nobleman who invited William of Orange to invade England and depose his father-in-law, James II. The surname database identifies Lumley as the family name of the Earls of Scarborough. The publication adds that this surname originates either from the village of Castle Lumley, in the parish of Chester-le Street, County Durham, or from Lumby, a former township within the parish of Sherburn in the county of Yorkshire. Next, many associate this name with one of the oldest English titles, 14. Maxwell Dudley Fitzgerald de Ros, 24th Baron de Ros, Vanity Fair, Wikimedia Commons. Maxwell also numbers among the last names that could reveal a link to English aristocracy. That's thanks to its association with the Baron of Ros. The title dates to the late 13th century. For a time, the English considered it the oldest barony. That actually gave it precedence over all other English titles. The surname database reports that the name Maxwell comes from a place near Melrose in the former county of Roxburgh. The place name originated when Maccus, son of Unduin, a Saxon lord, in the reign of David I, obtained a grant of land on the Tweed River before 1150 and from the salmon pool attached thereto called Maccus's Wheel. Next, this name has an illustrious history. 15. Robertson Philip Wharton, 4th Baron Wharton, Sir Anthony Van Dyke, Wikimedia Commons. Noble link, Baron Wharton. Next on the list. Robertson, a name associated with Baron Wharton. That title dates to 1544. But the family forfeited it in 1729, when the last male heir was declared an outlaw. How's that for some interesting family history? The title was erroneously revived in 1916. That means that many historians consider the current barony as a new barony, with the precedence of the older but extinct barony. The surname database reports that Robertson has more than 40 entries in Dictionary of National Biography. Plus, it has no less than 25 coats of arms, making it a very distinguished name. And Nicholas Robertson became an early emigrant to America. He left from London aboard a ship called Blessing, striking out for New England in June 1635. Next, historians characterize this as one of the most noble names in English history. 16. Russell Edward Russell, 26th Baron de Clifford, Central Press, Hulton Archive, Getty Images. Noble link, Baron de Clifford. Do you see Russell somewhere on your family tree? Then you may have some ties to English aristocracy. The tab reports that this name is associated with the Baron de Clifford. That title dates back to the year 1299. The surname database characterizes Russell as one of the most famous and noble names in British history since the conquest of 1066, when it was a Norman introduction. The National Biography bears more than 60 entries for Russells. Plus, the database reports that over 60 coats of arms have been granted to bearers of this illustrious name. Interestingly, you've probably heard of the 3rd Earl Russell. He's better known as philosopher Bertrand Russell. Next, this name could actually link you to a King of England. 17. Stanley Edward Geoffrey Smith Stanley Derby, 14th Earl of Derby, Hulton Archive, Getty Images. Noble link, Earl of Derby. Finally, the last name, Stanley, on your family tree could reveal some royal blood, thanks to its association with the Earl of Derby. The title dates back to 1139. It actually merged with the crown upon Henry IV's coronation. The surname database characterizes the name Stanley as one of the oldest and noblest of all English surnames, with the Stanley family, who hold the earldom of Derby, tracing their descent from a companion of William the Conqueror, Adam de Aldichley. Next, they didn't recognize any of these names? Keep this in mind, still no luck. Remember, we're all descended from royals, we're all a mix of royals and peasants. Henry Gutman, Getty Images. Even if you can't find anyone on your family tree with a last name known to be associated with royalty, don't despair. The tab reports that, statistically, we are all descended from the royals, with or without last names known for their aristocratic associations. A Yale professor once said that if anyone living in the year 1200 left any descendants still alive today, then that person, statistically speaking, is an ancestor of every single person on the planet. The upshot: King John sat on the throne in 1200. The tab explains that means we are all descended from King John. But we are also all descended from King John's servants and King John's pig handler. That's a good way to keep it all in perspective. Read more: Wedding traditions every royal bride and groom must follow. Check out the cheat sheet on Facebook.